Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Annie, this is Stanley, and we're here to talk about books. Today's episode is the next in my Reviews Revisited series, where I pick a book I haven't read for a very long time and that I have reviewed at some point since 2005, and I reread it and then compare my reactions to my original review. And today we are going to be looking at World War Z by Max Brooks. But first of all, let's make some tea. Okay, here we are at the tea drawers. What tea are we going to be making today? 10 is date and vanilla rooibos. Okay. Don't drink rooibos a lot, and I have another one that I prefer, the chocolate one. So this is not one that I go for very often. Good old past me has already boiled the kettle. Oh, it's always a little bit iffy, this one, because it's ground so small that it tends to puff up when you're putting the water in. Whoa, okay, that was a little bit too much. I'm not going to put the lid on that because that's going to spill over. Okay, we'll sort that out in a minute. Date and vanilla rooibos gone slightly awry. Oh, wow. So now we've got our tea, which is always an important accompaniment to reading in my view. Let's talk about what I remember from World War Z. I am not a horror reader, let's just say, although I have got into Stephen King this year, although I'm also not really reading the horror-heavy ones of his books, but that's by the by. I remember this was a very long time ago on a group gaming holiday that we used to run annually. And one of my friends said that they had read this book, World War Z by Max Brooks, and that it was one of the best books they'd ever read in their life. And they were telling absolutely everybody and their dog that they had to actually read this book, must read this book. And I was like, no, I don't want to read something about zombies. I just don't. It's not interesting to me. And he just kept going on about it all week. Must read World War Z, must read World War Z. And I think this may have been, maybe even up to 10 years ago. And it sticks in my brain as being one of the best books I have ever read. I know that it is made up of interviews and transcripts of stuff and reports rather than it being a standard fiction narrative. And I know it's about in a world where zombies are a thing and it's tracking what's happened across the world. Both to countries on a global scale, and I remember there's very individual personal stories as well from different people in different places, and it's just really well put together. I do remember it's pretty grim, so I am a little bit apprehensive going back into this, but that's what I remember. I remember it being really good, so I'm kind of looking forward to it and kind of not. So I guess I will go and get started with reading World War Z. I am using the Z rather than Z because it just doesn't sound right if you say World War Z, I don't think. So I am calling it World War Z. And I will come back when I'm about halfway through and let you know what I think. So I'm back. And I have read at least some of World War Z by Max Brooks, but it's not going well, I'm afraid. I don't really know what to say. I remember thinking that this was quite a long time ago, I believe, one of the best books I had ever read. And it is good. It's very well written. It's very impactful. It's it feels more like a non-fiction book than a fiction book, which is deliberate because it is interviews, transcripts, reports from all around the world after there's apparently been a plague, which people do call a zombie plague, although the authorial voice does say at the start that it's a misnomer to call them zombies. But I'm calling them zombies because I need them to be zombies for my Hercule challenge. But yes, he was commissioned by the United Nations to do a report on the World War Z, which is what people call it. a few years after the fact to collect data. And he did a whole load of interviews with all sorts of different people, and those were all taken out of the report because it was needed to be condensed and it needed to be just the facts. And he decided to write a book with all of the personal stories because he said that that's where he thought the most impactful information would come from. And this is supposed to be his book that he wrote with all of the extra material that was taken out of the official report. And it is a very good presentation of that. But it's grim. It's really grim. It's really unpleasant. It's really depressing, which is kind of partially the point. Early on, there are a few things which I thought really resonated from having lived through the pandemic, of people's attitudes to things and how things progressed. Obviously, it then becomes a lot more extreme because there are people, undead people, wandering around actually eating live people. So it's obviously quite more extreme than that. But yeah, there were some things that really resonated. So I don't know whether that has something to do with it. But I'm not in the right frame of mind for this kind of book right now. I did think about maybe putting it down and then coming back to it another month or even in a few weeks' time, because I have some weeks when I'm filming this before this video is due to go up. But I don't want to read it. I want to be reading Kiki's Delivery Service, which is what's next on my list. So I found myself I didn't read at all yesterday because I'd got a certain amount of the way through and I didn't want to pick it back up, which is a really bad sign for me because I read all the time. Anyway, good things about it. It's very well written. There's a lot of diversity in terms of the places that the people are from and the kind of people they are. There's scientists, pharmacologists, academics, soldiers, ordinary people. The one story that I did remember from having read it before is a young woman who is an adult, but weirdly it says she has the mind of a 14-year-old girl, which I'm not sure would necessarily be that different to talking to an adult. I mean, it would be to a certain extent, but not in a really dramatic way. And the way that her voice is recorded seems more like a 6-year-old. So I'm not sure what that's about, but her story is very affecting. A lot of it was quite dry, though. The first few, I think it probably gets more personal as it goes along, but he says he wanted to record the personal stories. And they're all about the global events and the global impact and how it affected things globally, really. And it's a bit dry in places. I don't know. I didn't want to read it. I think the first female interviewee doesn't come along until around the 11th or 12th narrative, but then there are more as it goes along, but that stood out to me. Yeah, I think that's it, really. I don't think there's much point in doing spoilers because I don't really have anything to say that's spoilery. Not in the right frame of mind for this, but I will have a look at my original review, but I'm not going to finish it. I'm not. First for the Reviews Revisited series, that not finishing a book. So I'll see what let's see what the review says. It was in 2012, which is about what I thought. I thought it was like 10 or 15 years ago. It says, Dave's been trying to get me to read this book for nearly 2 years, and I've been resisting him as it didn't really appeal to me. At long last, I put it in my suitcase for the flight back from California, and it turned out to be one of the best books I've read this year. And that's saying something when it's up against George R.R. Martin and China Miéville. Really interesting format. Oral records of the war collected 10 years after the fact allow for the exploration of all the different effects of and reactions to the war without the narrative getting distracted by the immediate action of it all taking place. Brooks comes up with some genius points about how a zombie apocalypse would actually proceed and how humanity in all its various guises would react. It's very clever and a very chilling indictment of society in some cases, though I did find the single British chapter really annoying. There are also a lot of very interesting and realistic, once you're past the initial concept of the living dead, presentations of the practicalities and logistics of fighting zombies. Highly, highly recommended. And yes, I would say it is still highly recommended because it is very good. If you don't want to have to wade through a lot of gore and a lot of depressing points about society. Society is depressing enough at the moment. I think that may be part of the problem. So yeah, it is still highly recommended. I didn't get to the British chapter, so I can't remember why that was annoying. But it is very clever. It is probably a very good extrapolation of how things might go if this situation were to actually occur. So yes, I'm not saying that it's a bad book in any way. It's just, it's not for me right now. So yeah, I think we'll leave it there. I should say next month I'm doing The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark, which is another Dave recommendation and a very different prospect. So hopefully that'll go better. So yeah, I guess that wraps it up for this episode of Reviews Revisited. Thank you for watching. I hope it's not too much of a disappointment for me not to finish the book, but I'm not going to put myself through it just to complete a video. And yeah, I will see you again for another video very soon. Bye for now.